I remember the day the darkness crept back into my life, settling around me like the suffocating fog that often enveloped Havenwood, a town defined by its picturesque landscapes, and yet haunted by the demons of its inhabitants. I had thought that moving in with my mother would bring a fresh start, or at least a semblance of normalcy. Instead, I found myself lost in a whirlwind of memories that twisted my heart into knots of anxiety and resentment. The walls of my new home were painted in soft pastels, but they could not mask the shadows lurking in the corners, where laughter once echoed. James, my stepfather, had tried to infuse warmth into our home, a warmth I felt ill-prepared to accept. The way he would lean in slightly when he spoke to me, his tone gentle and careful, often made me freeze, every instinct screaming to pull away and guard my heart. Years of protective walls had been erected around my emotions. I felt like a soldier in a barren landscape, forever cautious of ambush, forever ready for a battle that never came. On that fateful afternoon, the sunlight pierced through the kitchen windows, illuminating particles of dust that danced in the air. I sat at the dining table, the surface warm under my palms as I turned a cup filled with the remnants of cold coffee. The mug bore a chipped design of blooming roses, a stark contrast to the heaviness in my chest. James was cooking something fragrant on the stove, the aromatic scents of garlic and herbs wafting through the air as he stirred a bubbling pot. I wished I could simply relish the comfort of a home-cooked meal, but the churning in my stomach reminded me of my internal strife. "Ilara," he called, breaking the comfortable silence we often reveled in. "Could you grab the salt from the cabinet?" I hesitated, biting my lip as I weighed the request. Sure, it seemed simple enough, but there was something about his request that felt daunting. Moving in his direction felt like stepping onto a path lined with broken glass. One wrong move, one misstep, and I could bleed out emotionally. I forced myself to follow through, reaching up to the cabinet, running my fingers over the cool tiles. My breath hitched as I glimpsed at the scattered rearrangements of utensils and spices I'd fought relentlessly to ignore. They all spoke of commitment and routine, of a family I couldn't quite belong to. My fingers trembled around the salt shaker, and when I turned to face him, I caught the tension coiling in his shoulders. He stood there, stirring the pot with purpose, yet an edge of nervousness twisted his brow. "Thanks," he said, a soft smile breaking through his uneasiness. "I appreciate you helping out." "Sure," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper, drifting into a silence that pulsed in the air like a heartbeat. He was so different from my father, warm, caring, and genuine. But still, the specter of betrayal hovered above, whispering sweet lies to my confused heart. It all came to a head when he finally set the wooden spoon down and turned to face me fully, the warmth of the kitchen cold against the chill that swam between us. "Ilara," he began, his face drawn and serious. "We need to talk." My heart raced, a surge of blood hammering against my temples. "What about?" I asked, a steely edge creeping into my words despite my attempts to keep the conversation soft. He sighed deeply, moving to sit across from me at the dining table. He caught my gaze with eyes filled with a mix of frustration and sadness, as if he had been waiting too long to voice words that could slice through the last remnants of trust I clung to. "It hurts to see you so distant. I have poured my heart into trying to lift you from your pain, and all I have received in return is your coldness. I have biological children who would love me more than you ever could." His words, unexpected and brutally honest, crashed over me like a tidal wave. Suddenly, I was drowning in a sea of memories, my father's contemptuous laughter, the sting of abandonment, the suffocating pull of rejection. I felt the air exit my lungs, leaving me breathless and trapped within an echo chamber of my own emotions. Those words echoed through me, reverberating against every belief I had formed over the years about love, trust, and connection. I had tried so hard to build walls high enough to keep out the hurt, yet here he was, dismantling them before my very eyes. "James, you don't understand." My voice wavered, and I felt the prick of tears gathering behind my eyes, a moisture that I so desperately wanted to hide but couldn't. I had fought to keep my heart guarded, and now here I was, vulnerable and exposed. "I'm not like your children. I had a different life, one filled with pain that you can't even imagine." The tremor in my voice betrayed my attempt at strength. "I know you have a past, but I'm here now. I want to be here for you, but you cannot keep pushing me away. I care about you." "Can't you see that?" His voice softened, turning into a plea. The compassion in his eyes melted some of my defenses, but the fear remained steadfast inside me. I wanted so fiercely to step into that warmth, to embrace his understanding, but each inch felt like a leap of faith from a high cliff. And what if I fall? I shot back, my own hurt spilling over. What if you abandon me too? It's happened before and I cannot. My voice trailed off as the weight of unshed tears made my throat feel constricted. The shadows of my past lurked like vultures, waiting for the slightest sign of weakness. His features shifted, empathy filling his expression. You are not alone anymore, Alara. I won't hurt you, I promise. But the promises, I whispered, my voice cracking under the weight of his earnestness, they mean nothing, they're just words. People can twist their words like their intentions. That's not true. Not everyone is like that. He reached across the table, brushing his fingertips against my hand, a touch that sent a jolt through my body, igniting that familiar flicker of fear and a vulnerability I had worked so hard to keep locked away. I want our family to be whole. I want you to be a part of it. His simple touch sent shocks through my nerves, igniting old feelings and deeper fears. I swallowed hard, but the wave of emotion surged, brimming with a mixture of anger and sorrow. Why must I be reminded that I am a burden? I dropped my gaze to the table, hating the glistening tears that threatened to spill onto the surface. Why can't I just be enough? You are enough, he responded gently, his sincerity cutting through the static that filled the air. More than you'll ever know. Please, don't you see that? You are not a burden. You are a person deserving of love and protection. I wanted to nod, to embrace the truth in his words, but instead I could only recoil, as if trapped in a web spun from my own insecurities. Each attempt he made to reach me felt like a reminder of my past mistakes, a way to reinforce my belief that love only existed to betray. Just stop, I whispered hoarsely, my heart racing wildly. Every time you say something sweet, it just reminds me of the lies I've already endured. Lies? Are you not seeing the reality in front of you? The frustration etched lines of worry on his forehead. I can't, I retaliated, pushing back against the painful swell of honesty threatening to spill from my lips. You don't understand. The cycle is vicious. I can't break out of it. Every time I try, I fail. His expression softened further, and I could see the glimmer of hurt in his eyes. Alara, you are stronger than you know. You are not just your memories and past pains. I feel like I am. The words exploded from me, raw and painful. I feel like I am nothing without those scars. I don't know how to be normal, how to be happy. I built my identity in pain. You see me as your stepdaughter, but in my mind, I am just a burden on your life. You are not a burden. James leaned in closer, his voice barely a whisper, filled with a sincerity that felt like a lifeline. It breaks my heart to see you put yourself down like this. Everything I do is for us, what we could be, and I am ready to fight for you. But in the depths of my heart, I feared I would drag him down into my own abyss. I could almost hear echoes of my father's cruel laughter taunting me, the familiar chorus of abandonment and betrayal ringing louder than James's words of kindness. I can't do this right now, I stammered, pulling my hand away sharply as if burned. Leaves rustled in the breeze outside, sounding distant and dreamlike, like memories fluttering away from my grasp. Please, he urged, desperation tinging his voice, don't shut me out. I started, but my mind whirled into chaos. I need space. The admission tasted bitter and felt like a shackle tightening around my heart, but it spilled out before I could suppress it. The disappointment radiating from him was palpable, a tangible heartbeat that settled heavily in the air between us. Why? Because I can't deal with this. It's too much, I admitted, feeling the pull of a familiar instinct urging me to isolate, to conceal, to turn away from those who wished to love me. I can't help you if you don't let me, he replied quietly, and it broke something inside of me, this feeling that perhaps he wanted more for me and for us than I could ever allow myself to hope for. I'm sorry, I whispered, my heart pounding in my chest as I felt the walls I had built so carefully crack a little further. I'm so sorry. Yet in my mind, a storm brewed, dark clouds gathering, a flicker of anger igniting as I envisioned his words, his touch each burdening me with the reality of failing once again. I felt caught in an endless loop, a cycle I couldn't escape, and in that suffocating space, finally it laid bare before me. The thought of love being just an illusion, a mirage created to lure me into a false sense of security, clung to me as I stepped away from the table and the warmth it held. I felt like a tightly coiled spring, ready to snap with barely a nudge. I need to go, I finally murmured, every word a stone in my throat. I stepped back, the weight of unshed tears trailing my gaze as I connected to the overwhelming emotions, not truly knowing the path ahead as I left him behind, often the same path that led to the very betrayal I subconsciously feared. His silence chased me out of the kitchen, the lingering scent of garlic and herbs giving way to a pungent cocktail of uncertainty swirling in my gut. He had opened the door a crack, yet I singled out the shadows, those shadows taunting me with the bitter truth that love, in all its shimmering glory, was just an illusion designed to aid in my undoing. As I stepped into the hallway, every step echoed with despair, and I could not shake the feeling that I was running from the very thing I craved. Yet, until I was ready to drop my defenses, embrace trust, and truly face the betrayal of my past, the cycle would continue. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that. When I stormed out of that house, my breath came in sharp bursts, chasing away the memories of the past that weighed heavily on my shoulders. It felt as though I had shattered the chains that had restrained me for far too long, each step a splintering crack echoing into the evening air. My heart raced, the adrenaline surging not solely from the confrontation, but because for the first time in what felt like forever, I had taken control of my narrative. The thumping echoed in my ears, drowning out the shouts and the disbelief that had clung to those last words we exchanged. I had never imagined that summoning the courage to stand up for myself would feel this liberating. The walls of his house, those walls that echoed with our laughter and our fights, felt like they had been closing in on me, trapping me in a never-ending cycle of hurt and longing. But tonight, as I walked through Havenwood, the fading light of dusk wrapped around me like a warm embrace, reflecting the newfound clarity in my mind. It was as if each step I took was a reaffirmation of my worth, a reminder that I was deserving of love, respect, and honesty. No longer would I be a broken child seeking affection in all the wrong places. As I roamed the familiar streets of my quaint town, past the old bakery with its sugary aromas still wafting through the air, I could feel a sense of empowerment begin to settle deep within me. The world was painted in hues of orange and purple as the sun dipped below the horizon, and I reveled in this transformation. I could finally breathe again, each inhalation a cleansing wave that washed away the haunting shadows of neglect that had followed me for years. I was lost in thought when a faded blue pickup truck rumbled by. Its passenger window slid down to reveal a friendly face. "Hey, Alara, you okay? You look intense," Rosie called out, the worry etching her features. I managed a small smile, a flicker of warmth sparking in my chest. Rosie had always been the kind of friend who saw through the masks I wore. "I'm good, really. Just had a moment of clarity," I replied, my voice steady and clear. I could see she wanted to probe deeper, perhaps to dig out the truth lurking beneath my words, but she gave me a nod, trusting me to confide when I was ready. "If you ever need to talk, you know where to find me." "Thanks, Rosie. I'll keep that in mind." With a wave, she rolled the window back up, the truck jostling down the road, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Yet, even amid this newfound freedom, the aftermath of my confrontation loomed in my mind like an ominous cloud. Would he understand? I kept asking myself if I had gone too far, if perhaps I had been too harsh on James. The way his face fell when I called out his deceit, the hurt reflected back in his eyes, it haunted me. But in the stillness of that evening, as the stars began to twinkle overhead, I could feel the grit of determination growing within me. I saw my past not as a life sentence, but rather as a stepping stone to become who I truly was meant to be. The ache in my chest softened with the thought of cultivating a new life, one filled with the colors I had almost forgotten existed. When I returned home, the front door creaked in greeting, a familiar sound, yet tonight it resonated with my strength. I stepped inside, the house feeling different somehow. The air was quiet, almost reverent, as if it too had been holding its breath, waiting for me to reclaim my space. I settled into the solitude, savoring the calm that enveloped me. Days turned into weeks, and weeks unfolded into a pattern of rediscovery, a rhythm I had missed in my life. Slowly, I began to invest time in my growth, breaking free from the restraints of the past. I sought out therapy, the kind of healing I had once seen as weakness, but now understood to be a vital part of my journey. In the sterile office with its comforting pastels and cozy chairs, I began to address the shadows that lurked behind me, their whispers growing fainter, absorbed by the light filtering through the window. "It's okay to feel hurt," my therapist would remind me softly. "Acknowledging your pain is the first step to healing it." I picked up hobbies I had forgotten amid the chaos of my life. painting became my sanctuary. I found solace in colors swirling across the canvas, each stroke a release from the weight I had carried for so long. My brushes danced with emotion, creating landscapes of my soul that had remained hidden. I poured my heart into writing too, crafting stories that bore the truths I had silenced for years. I wrote about loss, love, betrayal, and ultimately, resilience. There was power in my words, a balm to soothe the wounds still fresh in my heart. On weekends, I ventured into the embrace of nature, hiking through the trails that wound like ribbons through Havenwood. The agile scents of pine and wildflowers filled my lungs, each step revitalizing the spirit that had long been dulled. I laughed as I stumbled over tree roots while birds called out overhead, urging me to marvel at their freedom. Here, in the heart of this beautiful chaos, I felt alive in ways I had never thought possible. Yet, even in this whirlwind of self-discovery and healing, a flicker of concern weighed heavily on my heart. If I was transforming and reclaiming my power, how would James process what I had done? Would he realize the pain behind every word I had spoken? I had never anticipated my choice to confront him could lead us both to a place of understanding. The thought of him grappling with guilt and shame tugged at my heartstrings. One evening, I came home from a hike feeling exhilarated and exhausted, the sun having plunged along the horizon. I plopped down on my couch, a blanket wrapping around me like a cocoon as I switched on the television. The bright screen illuminated the room, but the show I watched barely registered. Instead, I found myself drifting, wondering about the life James was leading now, how he was processing my words when we parted. Would he be searching for answers in the depths of his mind, or was he brushing it off, pretending as if it never happened? Deciding I needed clarity, I opened up my notebook filled with my thoughts, the pages now dog-eared from repeated reflection. I found a place to gather my swirling emotions. Would James ever truly understand? I scribbled. The truth that I shared tonight, could it sow seeds for a new path forward? Time slipped by unnoticed. As twilight thickened outside, I put my pen down and stared out my window, the sky rich with indigo shades illuminated by soft silver stars. In this quiet moment, I hoped, despite everything, that soon enough he would reach out. A part of me wanted to grasp for him, wanted to drive back to that moment, our moment, when the air had crackled between us like a summer storm. But that part had dimmed. The more I focused on my own strength and growth, the more I realized the bonds we'd forged couldn't be discarded. Inside me, a flame flickered, an unexpected yearning for understanding kindled. Perhaps, in time, we might find a way back to one another, to a space where healing could be shared and reaffirmed. Perhaps his journey, too, would lead him to recognize the truth of our shared past, mediated through the understanding that comes when the burdens of guilt finally lift. As I sprawled on the couch, a sudden thought gripped me sharp. What if the confrontation was not the end, but the beginning? With that thought weaving through my mind, a smile crept into my expression. With each passing day, as I continued to forge my identity anew, the delicate threads of our former lives might yet intertwine, creating a tapestry rich with color instead of pain. I wanted that. I wanted the chance to both reclaim my power and open a door to understanding. I would stand strong, unyielding in my resolve, but open to what the future held. We could rise from our pasts and choose to write a new chapter, together or apart, one where healing shone like a beacon guiding us both home. One afternoon, several weeks later, I ventured into town for supplies at a local grocery store. The vibrant colors of the fruits and vegetables greeted me like old friends, promising the self-care I had come to treasure. The sun streamed through the windows, casting warm golden hues on the polished floors. The hum of shopping carts rolling over the tiles mixed with the distant chatter of fellow shoppers, creating a comforting background melody. My cart filled with fresh produce, the earthy scent of basil and peppers mingling with the sweetness of ripe strawberries. Each item I selected was a small celebration, a moment of nurturing, as I indulged in snacks that promised to bring a smile to my face. Dark chocolate-covered almonds, my guilty pleasure, and popcorn sprinkled with just the right amount of salt. Just as I turned the corner into the cereal aisle, my heart plunged into my stomach, stopping me in my tracks. Standing there, almost lost in the colorful boxes of sugary delights, was James. The weight of silence enveloped me, and my breath hitched as memories of our turbulent last conversation flooded my mind. Panic surged through my veins like fire, igniting the faint remnants of dread that had lingered long after our parting. Would I have the courage to face him again? The ache of uncertainty twisted in my chest, battling against the burgeoning desire to see him once more. The air around us thickened, heavy with memories and unspoken words. As if sensing my presence, his gaze drifted toward me, and our eyes locked in that instant. A world of emotion, hurt, longing, and perhaps reconciliation passed between us in those fleeting seconds. I felt the ground beneath me begin to tremble, the familiar unease mixing with a flicker of hope. But just as my heart dared to leap, I turned to escape, wanting to retreat into the comforting embrace of anonymity. "Alara," he called out softly, his voice wrapping around me like a gentle breeze. It was a name that lingered in the air, almost a resonance of something precious. Like calling out to a long-lost friend, despite everything that had come before. I froze, my hand gripping the cart, the cool metal grounding me momentarily, but I could not ignore the hesitant smile that began to spread across his face. "I have been thinking a lot about our last encounter," he continued, each word careful, as if they were porcelain, ready to shatter with the slightest misstep. "I had to know the truth, and I came to realize—" He halted mid-sentence, his breath hitching slightly, and I could see the inner turmoil written all over him. His usually confident demeanor slipped away, replaced by an earnest vulnerability that arrested my attention. "I am so sorry for what I said that day," he finally breathed, taking a deep breath as if he was summoning the strength he needed to uncover something raw and delicate. "I should have never compared you to my biological children. That was cruel, and I truly did not mean it. I was hurt and frustrated, but my words cut deeper than I could have imagined. I miss you." His voice trembled, the sincerity woven through each syllable, and I could see the truth shining in his eyes. It was a different James standing before me, a man stripped of his bravado, revealing the soft underbelly of confusion and regret. The sorrow lingering in his gaze tugged at something deep within me, a pang that was once connected to pain, but now pulsed with the warmth of empathy. My heart softened in response, echoes of our shared past whispering through the air. How many sleepless nights had I spent replaying our last conversation? How many mornings had I woken up feeling as though a piece of me had been lost? But now, standing here before him, there was clarity, an understanding that despite the turmoil, there was still room for growth, for healing. "I have missed you too," I found myself responding, my voice steady, shaped by newfound strength as I approached him, putting space between the anguish of the past and the possibilities of the future. Though I could not reciprocate love before, I wanted to explore the realms of a connection with you. But I have also realized my own worth. I am not the broken girl you once knew. The electric tension between us hummed through the spaces we occupied, charging the air with an opportunity rich in healing. My words hung in the air like an invitation to bridge the chasm that separated us. It was a moment suspended in time, one that demanded honesty and vulnerability from both of us. We were two souls daring to redefine our relationship, to shift the paradigms that had once trapped us. As I took a step closer, I could see the flicker of surprise ripple through him. Perhaps he had not expected this response. Uncertainty had danced between us for too long, but now, as the warmth of our reconciliation wrapped around me, I could feel the tension ease. "When you said what you did, it shattered something inside me," I confessed, my voice barely rising above a whisper. "But I'm not here to punish you for those choices. I'm here to acknowledge that we both have wounds, and it is time we heal." "I never wanted to hurt you," he said, the raw vulnerability in his tone underscoring every word. "I know," I replied gently. "We've both said and done things we regret. We are human after all." I paused, letting the words settle like dust in the summer air. "But we are also capable of change. I want to believe that we can move forward together." It felt like a pact, the atmosphere around us rich with the scent of possibility. As if drawn by some magnetic force, I extended my hand, feeling the pulse of anticipation zip through the space between us. His hesitation was brief, a moment of vulnerability as he assessed the offer, perhaps unsure of whether he was worthy. But then he took it, a warm and strong grasp that sent a surge of electricity through my arm. The feel of his hand in mine was anchoring. It locked us in a shared commitment to redefine our connection. Together, we began to walk down that cereal aisle side by side, the bright colors of the packaging fluttering past us, like banners of hope fluttering in a gentle breeze. "You know," I began, trying to fill the space between us with easy conversation, "I've found new favorites since we last talked. Have you ever tried that peanut butter cereal? It's surprisingly good. His laughter, a sound that once made my heart flutter, now echoed with a warmth that melted away the remaining shards of hesitation. I have not, but it sounds interesting. I mean, peanut butter is a classic. You can put it on almost anything. What about apples? Have you tried sprinkling cinnamon on apples and then slathering it with peanut butter? I asked, genuinely excited, hoping to spark that same joy I had once felt in our interactions. A smirk danced across his lips. You know, that actually sounds pretty good. I might have to snag that recipe from you. It felt like a dance, an intricate choreography of old memories interwoven with the present. Each laugh, each shared moment pushed the boundaries of what had once felt suffocating. Though we were surrounded by boxes and cans, the physical items faded into the background, emphasizing the emotional journey we embarked on together. "Do you think we can make this work?" he asked suddenly, a flicker of vulnerability returning to his voice. I paused, allowing the gravity of the question to settle over me. "I think healing takes time," I said finally, "but we have to commit to being honest. No more veils or harsh comparisons, just us two imperfect people striving for something real." "Agreed," he said earnestly, nodding as if locking away the words in his heart. "I don't want to go back to what we had before. I want to build something new, something based on trust." As we approached the end of the aisle, the bright colors all around us felt almost celebratory. "So what's next?" I asked, excitement bubbling in my chest. "Will I see you at the coffee shop again? I swear their lattes are an entirely different experience." He smiled, his whole face lighting up, pushing away the earlier shadows. "I am definitely in. Just promise me you won't order me anything too sweet. I've got a reputation to uphold," he joked, his playful tone revitalizing the warmth that began to bloom in my chest. Walking out of that grocery store, our hands still clasped together, it was as if a bright sun filtered down upon us, illuminating the uncharted territory we were stepping into. The shadows of the past became stepping stones, a path leading away from resentment and toward a friendship that carried the keys to compassion and understanding. I had not come to the store expecting to recognize a growth we both desperately needed, yet here we were, illuminated by the glow of newfound connections and possibilities. I smiled contentedly to myself, relishing in the small miracle of this unexpected reunion. I reflected on everything I had endured and how much I had grown. I was no longer that fractured girl longing for connection. I was a woman who had carved her own path amid the rubble of doubt and pain. Today was merely the start, but with every step, we edged closer to something magnificent. A healing journey within reach as I walked out of that grocery store, hand in hand with James. A rush of gratitude surged through me. The cool autumn breeze toyed with the strands of hair that had escaped my ponytail, sending a delightful shiver down my spine. The evening sun cast a warm, golden glow over Havenwood, creating an almost magical ambience. I felt lighter, buoyed by the conversation we had just shared, the walls that had once felt insurmountable now showing signs of cracking and crumbling away. "Do you remember the first time we met?" I asked, turning my head to catch a glimpse of his face. There was warmth in his smile, a softness in his eyes that made my heart race. "Of course I do," he replied, chuckling softly. "It was at that art gallery opening you dragged me to. I thought I wouldn't enjoy it at all." I laughed, the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep within me. "And look how wrong you were, you ended up loving it. I mean, how could you resist those massive paintings of birds in flight?" "Guilty as charged," he admitted, shaking his head good-naturedly. "But you know I came for you, not the art. I was just trying to be supportive." His words brushed against me like silk, kind and reassuring. I glanced up at him, remembering the frustration I had felt back then, the disconnect between us, the shadows of misunderstandings that clouded our connection. "And I appreciate it," I said, squeezing his hand tighter for a moment, as thoughts of past bitterness flitted through my mind. But I had no idea then how much support I needed. James met my gaze, and for a heartbeat, the noise of the world around us faded to a whisper. The breeze picked up the scent of fallen leaves, creating a nostalgia in me, reminding me of simpler times. "Neither did I," he replied softly. "But here we are, aren't we, moving forward together?" "Together," I repeated, letting the word roll on my tongue like a cherished secret. The idea was still fragile enough that I could feel the weight of my past against it, and yet the glimmer of hope it carried was undeniable. "I never imagined we'd end up here." He smiled knowingly, a hint of mischief dancing in his eyes. And I never imagined you would make me latte art during our coffee breaks. Only the best for you, I teased, recalling the first time I had tried to impress him with my admittedly mediocre skills. Besides, your face when I handed you that heart-shaped froth was priceless. I could hardly breathe. I was laughing so hard. He chuckled, his laughter filling the space between us, thwarting the lingering shadows of past pain. You certainly know how to make someone feel special. As we meandered down the path, daylight gradually softened into twilight, the sky a canvas of purples and oranges. I leaned against him, my shoulders brushing against his arm as we walked in comfortable silence, the rhythm of our footsteps harmonizing with the quickening pulse of the world around us. Each step reminded me of how far we had come, and I couldn't help but reflect on our shared journey. Our friendship had blossomed like the flowers in spring, overcoming the frost of winter that once stifled our connection. Sometimes I still feel haunted by the past, I admitted, almost shyly. You know, those bitter memories linger like fog on a cold morning. He glanced down, his brow furrowing in thought. You are more than your past, just as I am. It's easy for us to get trapped in those memories, but the truth is, we have the power to redefine who we are. Redefine. I mused, the word wrapping around me like a warm, protective blanket. What if I redefine myself as someone who is free, free from those toxic memories, free to embrace an honest and open heart? Exactly, he exclaimed, his eyes lighting up in enthusiasm. Picture it like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon. You fought hard to emerge, and now you get to soar. I couldn't help but smile at the imagery. So I guess I'm a phoenix rising from the ashes then, James laughed, the sound vibrant and bright. Absolutely, but remember, even a phoenix can seek support from its surroundings. You don't always have to be strong alone. A phoenix with a friend, I said, my heart swelling at the thought. It was reassuring to have someone like him at my side, a savior in a world that often felt hostile and unforgiving. I suppose I am learning that. The crisp air filled my lungs, invigorating my spirit as we continued down the path, vibrant leaves crunching beneath our feet. A tiny shop caught my attention, its windows aglow with the warm lights of a bakery. Hey, I said, suddenly animated, let's grab dessert. I need something sugary after all this profound talk. Now you're talking, he replied, feigning excitement, but the twinkle in his eye betrayed him. I was wondering how long it would take before you suggested sweets. Stepping inside, the smells of freshly baked pastries enveloped us, a mouth-watering delight that made my stomach rumble. The walls were adorned with delicate floral patterns, and pastel candies sparkled from glass jars perched on shelves. Whoa, I exclaimed, gesturing towards the dessert counter. This place is a wonderland. Laughter erupted as he spun around, mock-dramatic. You know the way to my heart is through sweets, right? I smiled, my heart mirroring the warmth of the shop. Of course, and I intend to ensure you always have a full heart. As we neared the counter, the baker met us with a friendly smile. What can I get for you two lovely people? James turned to me, raising an eyebrow playfully. What do you recommend? I'd trust your judgment over anything. I smirked, feeling the heaviness of my past grow lighter. In that case, if you want something that's utterly unforgettable, we ought to try the chocolate lava cake. It's almost a crime to visit and not indulge. 2 chocolate lava cakes, please, James chimed in, almost dreamily in agreement. As the baker prepared our treats, I felt the anticipation building within me. The sweetness of inspiration filled the air as we began chatting about our lives, blending laughter with memories, and allowing the fragile threads of our past to merge into something beautiful. Life has a funny way of bringing us to the right place when we least expect it, he said, leaning against the counter as we awaited our treats. Yeah, I agreed, my mind swirling with the possibilities life had placed before me. Like how we found our way back to each other despite everything. The treats emerged, beautifully presented, glistening under the shop lights as if they were nuggets of pure gold. I took my plate, relishing the warmth that radiated from the dessert. All right, let's find a cozy spot outside. We settled on a small bench beneath the tall sycamore tree, its leaves rustling softly in the breeze. As I took my first bite, the rich chocolate erupted from the center, cascading onto my plate. I closed my eyes, savoring the sweetness. This, I moaned dramatically, is heavenly. He tried a bite, his eyes widening in delight. You may just have found the best dessert in all of Havenwood. Dare I say it might even be better than my coffee art, I teased, shooting him a feigned, challenging glance. Oh, it's much better, he grinned, licking the chocolate from his fork. But it doesn't mean I love you any less. Surprising warmth filled my chest, reminding me of why I cherished this newfound bond. I appreciate that more than you know. We finished our treats, our laughter echoing through the cool evening air, reverberating off the surroundings in a joyful harmony. It was a moment that painted a vivid picture in my mind, a beautiful snapshot of resilience and recovery. The barriers between us hadn't just dissolved, they had been transformed, reimagined into pathways that led us closer together. Sometimes I wonder how we got here. I spoke softly, clarity dawning in my heart. James looked into my eyes, supportive and patient. It wasn't easy, but we fought for this moment, and every moment after. With his words hanging in the air, I realized how far I had come, stepping forward into a future I once thought was impossible to reach. You know, I said thoughtfully, I had always envisioned revenge as a form of reclaiming my life, but with you, I see it differently now. Revenge isn't the answer, he replied firmly, his voice steady. It only continues the cycle of pain. The true reward of your battles is peace and moving forward. I nodded, feeling the weight of his wisdom sink in deeply. So, it is not merely about getting back at those who wronged me, but embracing what has come from the ashes. Exactly, he affirmed, his expression filled with pride. You're a phoenix. The quest for revenge can be an anchor that only weighs you down. A sense of fluttering hope filled my veins, confirming everything I had felt in the darkest times. I was carving out my path, crafting who I was to become. I could feel the transformation happening, invigorating me with each breath of fresh, bracing air. And I am so ready to embrace it, I said quietly, the sensation of liberty swaying through my soul. With you by my side. He leaned closer, a gentle smile gracing his lips. Always. Together, under the sycamore tree awash in the fading light, we traded dreams and shared stories. We laughed and leaned into the warmth of our friendship. The shadows of the past no longer held sway over us. Instead, they were mere brushstrokes in the canvas of our vibrant lives, transformed into something brighter, illuminated by the glimmer of hope. I saw the future stretching before me, a mosaic of experience, strength, and the bonds of love I had forged anew. The weight that once pressed down on our hearts began to lift, breathing new life into the person I had become. In that moment, I felt like I was soaring, the world stretching out before me as I embraced a future without chains.